Okay, good afternoon and welcome to this special discussion at the Jerusalem Press Club celebrating International Women's Day. My name is Talia Deco-Fleissig, CEO of JPC. Women have always been at the forefront of history and Israel is no exception. In the current war, women are serving on all fronts. There are those who have fought in combat, standing shoulder to shoulder with their fellow soldiers. Many of them are in reserves, away from their families and putting their own careers on hold. Others are waging a different kind of battle on the home front. Wives of soldiers or partners of soldiers who are holding down the fort, raising children, and providing the emotional strength that keeps families together amid uncertainty, simultaneously maintaining their own jobs, many in senior management positions. Today, we have the privilege of hearing from two extraordinary women who are playing leading roles in this current war. Dana Ben Ezra is a reserve lieutenant colonel in the IDF. She was a combat intelligence officer, the first combat female officer as a deputy commander in the infantry corps, and the first female battalion commander on a maneuvering unit on Lebanon's border. During Iron Swords, Dana was in reserve service for 119 days, leading combat intelligence forces operating in Gaza. Her strategic leadership included the deployment of specialized technologies to effectively illuminate and decipher the adversary's activities on the battlefield. As a civilian, until very recently, she was VP of Operations at Blue and White, a California-based agritech startup. She is married and lives in central Israel. Chen Arbel is the founding CEO of the Reservists Wives Forum, which advocates for the rights of families during wartime, and where she manages the organization's relations with the military. Chen is the mother of two girls and is married to Itai, a combat commander who served for 200 days during the war as a sniper platoon commander. She does this while managing a high-tech career in young startups. Chen was also a torchlighter during the 76th Independence Day of Israel's state ceremony. Thank you both so much for joining us this afternoon. I'd like to hear a bit from each of you about yourselves, and then we'll go into some questions. Dana, let's begin with you, please.
Sure. First of all, thank you for the intro, and it's a huge privilege to take part of it. And Chen, thank you for doing what you're doing. It's so far from being something to take for granted. So thank you. So as Talia mentioned, I'm Dana. I'm 40 years old. Served in the IDF for a little bit more than 17 years as a lieutenant colonel, and commanded over 1,000 soldiers, combat soldiers, non-combat, mixed, women, male, as the battalion commander of the combat intelligence in the border with Lebanon. Once I finished my military service, I joined a startup company and relocate myself and my wife to California, USA. It was 3 years ago, and I found myself in Israel, back in Israel for a visit 3 days before October 7th. And I had a very tight schedule, to say the least, to see friends, family, just to hang out in the beach. And 3 days after, I found myself in kind of a different schedule than I expected, and a different beach, to be honest. Served for 190 days inside Gaza, leading troops of combat intelligence, almost 400 of them, mostly men, helping our country to fight back, to bring the hostages back, and to achieve all the military goals. Unfortunately, I was injured and had to go back to get some treatment. And in a personal perspective, I thought my relocation chapter would be a bit longer, but the war kind of did its thing, and we chose to come back to Israel and to live here. And today, as I said before, super happy and privileged to talk to you.
So Dana, first of all, thank you very much for agreeing to speak with us, and of course for your service. There's really nothing to be added but our gratitude. Chen, please go ahead.
Thank you. Dana, you said thank me, but I would thank you. I think this is the synergy with the front and the home front. My name is Chen. I'm 34 years old. I have two beautiful daughters and a very brave husband who's serving for the army for 15 years in reserve duty, combat positions. And October 7th caught us surprised, as most of the people in Israel, but without any questions that we'll do anything we need to protect our borders, people, kids, airspace, and anything that actually needs to be protected. I separated from Itai on October 7th, and the next time I saw him was after 3 months. 3 months. During these 3 months, there are alarms, missiles, rockets. The kids are at home because the schools and the kindergartens weren't operated. I'm in a core position in a small startup, leading the product efforts and the go-to-market efforts, and I had this on my shoulders as well. For the first month, the state kind of was in freeze mode, but after that, people were always talking about how psychologically, mentally, and of course economically, it's the right thing to do to start and going back. But when 50% of the household being cut, it's not that an easy task. And let's add to that, of course, the anxiety for Itai's situation in place. No communication. It means we were sending letters, and he was getting them a week or two after that, and we were back to this age stone, which was also challenging to live without certainty, without communication. Very, very different than the world we live in. And I always summarize it as two different realities that actually start to happen. They're not meeting at all or a lot. And Itai is fighting with his friends because they were more time together than he was with us. Our little girl was 1 year old, so he missed her starting talking or walking or eating or and stuff like that. But we're thankful that he's back home and everything. I would say balanced, but starting to see a different way. And I think for me, it was hard to do the regular things I do. I couldn't stay silent, as I know 100,000 families are actually in the situation of mine without any place to go or someone knock on his door. And we, together with 10 women, we were founding this forum representing the wives, the kids, starting to construct a program, what we need in order to support in three verticals: emotionally, mentally, economically, and employing wise. And together we were creating major programs. We promoted laws that actually help, myself included, to continue working in 30% position, 50% position, because again, the house needs you, and we needed some quiet, I would say, to ourselves in all this crazy world. Yeah, and we're still ongoing. We're talking about the next 5-6 years to be the same in different volumes, but in this complexity. And we need infrastructure on all fronts to actually maintain this new life.
Wow, it's really important, obviously. And you know, there are so many different levels of having of service throughout this war, and there are those people that served hundreds of days, those people that served even just a few, and everything really was, you know, everything was changed. I'd like to ask you both a few questions pre-October 7th, just to give us some context. First of all, I'll start with Chen. I mean, obviously, Ty had done reserves in the past. He was obviously he didn't wake up on October 7th and start his reserve service. Had anything in the past prepared you for this moment in which suddenly he wouldn't be at home for 3 entire months? Like, was this something you ever imagined could happen?
No, the short answer is no. The long answer is we used to do a third, and I say we because the entire house is actually shifting when someone's go off for such a long period, but it used to be on 30-40 days before the war. you always think about the possibility of a war. You always think about something, about an operation, about an extreme situation that might happen. But this intensivity and surprise were not planned at all. Yeah, and it caught us both surprised, right? If you think about Itai as well, like facing into different, left his job, left his home, left everything, as Dana mentioned, to save the hostages, to prevent from Hamas to continue and doing such operation during the war. So it's totally different mindset and life we're used to. And we were adjusting, we're still adjusting, but it really required us to shift almost everything in our lives.
That makes a lot of sense. Dana, you were a career officer for many years. You don't just get to the position that you're in overnight. Did you encounter obstacles over the course of your military career? I mean, beyond the regular obstacles that one has, but do you feel that as a woman you were faced with additional obstacles? Maybe if you can summarize how you overcame them, if possible, and were there people to lean on along the way?
Sure. I'll start with saying that even though I was serving my country for such a long time, and this is the army kind of language. We talk war, we prepare ourselves to war. This is what you need to do. This is your responsibility. And as much as it sounds weird, there's nothing that really prepares you to the real thing. And I will kind of connect that to the fact that I'm a woman. A war, such a chaotic situation, such a chaos. It's even worse for women because there is kind of a feeling that it's not the place for women. And I'm not saying it that I feel like that, but you definitely get the feeling like, what are you doing here? You missed the turn. Why are you here? Like the faces are kind of surprised. And I can't say I didn't get those kind of faces in my regular service. But when it comes to war, it gets even worse. And you need to overcome it, and you need to stay focused on your mission. You need to stay focused on getting your goals. And you need to put aside the feelings, the fact that you lost friends, the fact that you're shocked, just like any other civilian in Israel, any other citizen, and overcome it. And I think women specifically, we have this ability to embrace situations that most people kind of getting lost in. And at least I know, to speak about myself, it helped me a lot to stay calm, even when everything is very, very anxious and stormy. And I felt like, being myself, kind of keeping my center and focusing, especially focusing my energy into the goals. It was kind of helping everyone around me, not just myself, especially when you're commanding people. They need it from you, even if you're a male or a female, it doesn't really matter. They expect you to lead them and to be the person they can count on. So it was one of the biggest challenges for sure.
Are there any unique difficulties that you think women soldiers in the battlefield have contrary to men, specifically in Gaza or in general?
I think it depends on the level. It's not the same when you're a soldier or commander or a senior commander. It kind of plays different roles. Technically, the world is built for men. It's kind of challenging to do the day-to-day kind of routine. So yes, it is challenging to be a woman, even if you're whatever role you are. But I think once you're, focusing on your mission and understanding why are you there, it makes things easier. But again, it's not the same. It's definitely not the same, especially when you look around. Most people are men, and it's kind of easier. They have their own kind of language, and it helps in extreme situations. It helps. I found myself with commanding people. I didn't know their names. Literally, I didn't know their names. I was saying bro or something like that, but obviously in Hebrew. But it was challenging, and accepting a female kind of authority in a very extreme situation inside Gaza. I mean, all the circumstances are really, really challenging. But I'm very fortunate that my soldiers were kind of, putting aside all the nonsense and making sure we're gonna get our goals, we're gonna get our hostages back. We need to fight back, and they helped me.
So thank you for that. You both mentioned the hostages, of course, which is an integral part of this war. And there was a lot of talk over over the months of how the female hostages versus how the male hostages will handle the situation, and in particular when it was talk about the soldiers themselves, because they were of course held on a little bit longer and treated differently. Was that ever something that came up in the discourse, whether Dana, between between soldiers, did that ever come up, or Chen, maybe at home, was that something that was ever discussed in your circles?
I don't know.
I think it's hard to tell. The bigger picture is everyone needs to be back home, right? I mean, whatever opportunities the the governmental situation allows you, the field situation allows you, you bring someone back home. Of course, you see the young children, the women, and you can't even think about how nightmare it is. But it comes up. I mean, you talk a lot about the morality of the situation, right? I mean, if soldiers needs to, I mean, can danger themselves to rescue, deceased hostages, but it's unimaginable conversations at home, but it's present. We have to set the tone, and I think the bottom message is always, whenever, wherever it's possible to rescue out of there someone, do it. This is the bottom line.
I will add a few things, and I'm 100% agree with Chen. First of all, we had those talks. We had a lot of talks about the hostages, about females in captivity. It's sensitive, I mean, you can't really ignore it. You can't deny it. And I can tell you, it was one of the biggest drive to keep on in a really hard situation, really hard days. When you're losing friends, you're losing people, and people get injured. I mean, you need something to drive you, to give you this motivation to fight back when you're in a really tough situation. And like Chen said, I mean, you don't care. At least I don't care. If it's a male, if it's a female, just bring them back. And if you have the possibility, even if it's the smallest window, the smallest, the tiniest, this is what leads us. I mean, this is what this society is built on. We're not leaving anyone back. And if it's a woman, if it's a man, it really doesn't matter. At least not to me. And I think most people in this country will agree. We want everyone back, just everyone. And we're going to do anything. I'm talking as a reservist. We're going to do everything we can in order to do that, even to risk ourselves, because this is what really, this is the glue of this society, of this country, and we can't break it up. We don't have this privilege.
Of course. There are a few questions that are coming in separately for both of you. Chen, how do you respond to the to being called a superwoman? Is it something that lifts you up, or does it frustrate you? Because I've heard both reactions.
I'm fine with it because I'm a woman of doing. I'm not a woman of titles. I mean, for me, I really, Dana mentioned the why, and I think whenever like you're going with the why and you have it in front of your eyes, if it can be the hostages in the battlefield, it can be the rights of the families in a home front. Whenever you know the why, it really doesn't matter what comes with it. For me, and I think for the entire group in our forum, this is how we see it. We've been working in super complex environment. When we have in the room, I wouldn't say seniors, but most of the high-ranked people in the army, and we were 2 women and there were 8 men, and we were telling them, this is you're doing something wrong. And you know, it really doesn't matter what are they ranks or titles, but we also give them a hand, right? We have a suggestion, we have something to do. This is how you can do it. We're here to do it together. And I think this is really what drives me and connects better everything. It really embrace the other side to co-work. And for me, I'm fine with titles, but I honestly don't really care about them.
No, I ask because some people say that there's, it creates this expectation of women to have to be able to do it all, which I think is really important to say, especially during a week like Internet that celebrates women, that women shouldn't be expected to be able to do it all 100% of the time and be everywhere 100% of the time. And in 2025, that certainly feels like the expectation.
Yeah, I think this is exactly what drives me and this group and our group to do stuff, right? Because eventually in my life, my position is the main house financial source. I'm holding I would say bigger career, and when Itai left home, it actually shifted the entire balance in the house. But again, this initiative actually said, okay, it's great that this is the reality, but let's change it. Let's do it differently. And the things that we actually enabled allows not to be the women that do everything at home, but hold a career in a different balance, and the kids and the house until they get back, but not as the society expected us to do in the beginning, but with the relevant adjustments to 2025.
Dana, was your decision to return back to Israel in some way impacted by the war itself? Because this obviously is a huge career choice.
Absolutely. I can't twist it. We thought, my wife and I were thinking about having this relocation chapter a little bit longer before the war. We never thought to, immigrate totally from Israel, but we thought it's going to take a while to come back, and the war definitely shifted those thoughts. And a little bit, a small addition about your previous question to Chen. I think women were born superpower. I really believe that. So it doesn't really matter if the society is expecting us to be such a thing, or the war is forcing us to be a superpower. I think we have it in us, and therefore those beautiful and super important things that Chen and its forum is doing is super affecting not only back at the society, but also on the front line.
I do want to hear a little bit more about what your victories, Chen, are in terms of what your organization has been doing. But one journalist is asking Dana specifically about the issue of the fact that the military is a relatively male-dominated organization, and if you agree with the assumption that the masculine-dominated environment has a tendency to have more violence than compassion as a military, if that's something that you agree with or not.
Well, I think it's a little bit tricky. It's tricky because when you take an army, so you need to be aggressive. It's not, you know what? I used to tell my mom that the military is not a pharmacy. And kind of said that because I try to explain that it's not a pleasant place. I mean, we're built for war, okay? I mean, the army is not, I don't know, some nice organization that needs to have fun. It's not what we're built for. And therefore, you need to have a certain kind of aspects in your personality. And it really doesn't matter if you're a male or a female, at least to me, you are required to have those aspects, those characters in your personality. And aggressiveness, for example, is one of them. And I think we're a little bit confusing between what the army needs to do and what other organizations or government or whatever needs to have. Compassion is something that as a human being, you obviously, I expect myself to be one of it, but it for sure, it's a question of a place and time. And when I'm fighting back, obviously I'm trying to use only the power I really need to, and I'm not trying to be over aggressive. But again, it's very hard to fight back when you're not having those kind of aspects in your personality, the right one. And again, I'm super proud to be parts of the army and to be a witness of thousands of situations where I know for sure no other army would have acted the same. When it comes to compassion, when it comes to using only the force you really need, and I'm very proud, not only that, but also when we're not doing it, how the army is appealing to that, what kind of treatment, and what is the compass? How do we see it? If it's okay, or if it's not okay? And I would like more women to be in those positions because we can contribute just like men. Okay, not because
in the senior commanding positions or in the
absolutely
combat. Okay.
Both. I mean,
right.
the army is built that mostly senior commanders have a very extensive combat experience. So you need, in order to be a senior commander, you need to have that. So if you're going to start with females at combat, it's very likely for them to be able to come to positions where they're also seniors. And I do believe we can contribute.
So that means opening more combat roles to soldiers, to female soldiers to begin with, as opposed to
yes,
bottlenecks.
And B, also we need to keep in mind the IDF is a pioneer in opening a combat position to women, especially an army that it's not just for fun. Okay, it's our army that has wars. Okay, very high friction, even in days that we're not in war. So it's not just nice to have. It's something we must. And I'm very proud that the IDF is doing the right steps towards that. And as I said before, pioneering the whole aspect of women in combat.
So it seems, from just to kind of sum up what you're saying, the Army's role at the end of the day is to defend the country. It's to be victorious, and you're confident that when we do need to show compassion as an army, we do. Speaking of victories, Chen, this is a good segue. What do you think the main things that you have achieved over the last year or so, or since the organization was founded? What you've been able to do, sitting in the room with the eight officers when you're trying to achieve things for wives across the country and not just for yourself?
Yeah, so in achievements in two pillars. One is the public policy, right? When we were thinking how we can affect the mass, right? Not 20 or 200 women, but the entire entire community. We're talking about 300,000 women and 250,000 children. You need to think big. So public policy, obviously, it's the right way. We promoted employment protection laws and which actually allows, like, again, it's also sensitive. We were working with employers in the market to make sure it's also not making their businesses collapse. But eventually we need to secure position for women who actually holds this war with their men outside. And I think the second achievement and the really important is hearing and translating this voice of these families, where I think at the beginning everything we're taking for granted, right? Obviously there's a war, obviously we need soldiers, everyone out, but some houses were not that strong to hold this for a long period. I got some phone calls from women that actually weren't able to make it to the supermarket this month, and you have to make sure these families have a safety net. And together we were raising a new unit in the army that actually wrapping and giving this support to these families. So these are a few examples, but there are lots more. And I think looping back to the power superwomen, I think eventually what I'm telling to young women that I met is that I'm a regular person. I'm the average person, but I'm not staying silent. I'm doing, and this is what I would want to send to every young woman who's actually see someone as a hero. No, it's in every one of us. Not to stay silent, but just doing whatever you think it's right to do, and the universe will do everything from there. I truly believe in it.
Well, then it's good to have somebody, so optimistic at the top of this organization, and we're very glad to have you there. We're almost out of time. Dana, seeing as how you just came back to Israel, you're kind of starting anew. Do you have any particular plans? Would you ever consider going back to the military? I'm sure that your wife doesn't appreciate that question, but just where do you think you're going next?
First of all, my wife is very, very supportive. I wouldn't have stayed 17 years in the army without her support, so it's okay. She will excuse me for that. I'm doing a reserve at the moment, so I'm still on uniforms. And yes, I have plans to continue contribute my country. It's a very rough time at Israel at the moment. The war, but also before, we have a lot of internal issues that we need to solve in order for us to keep on being such a beautiful country. And I wanna take part of it. Like Chen said, I mean, if something is wrong, go out there and do something to change it. Don't stay silent. Don't stay, waiting for others to do it for you. So those are my plans to keep on contributing. I don't know exactly the channel that I would choose. Obviously, there's a lot of options, but I promise I will do it.
Oh, we believe you. Chen, maybe just to wrap up, assuming and hoping that this war will end as soon as possible, do you have any thoughts about what the day after for your family, for the families that you're trying to help with, will look like? Assuming that routine is something that will come back to us.
Yeah, I mean, being realistic, I'm seeing the last year as the next 5 years, talking about timelines. And it's, again, the volume is going to be different. The border is going to be like the location is going to be different. But I'm not I can't stay naive, and we need to look for the short term, but also for the long term. And I think one of the big understandings that we had this year is that we need to be we need to change the mindset and be prepared, so it can be happening in the next 10, 20, 30 years. We are creating reality in this forum that our children will probably enjoy from its fruits, right? I really don't want my girls to use these laws, but I can't also say they won't. So it's really a long-term effort. And I don't know, hopefully someday I will discover I was wrong, but at the moment we're looking years forward.
I think that's very true. And just I'll share my own angle of that. As a mother of 3 boys, yesterday my eldest who's only 10, said, "We won't need to go to the army, will we?" And that's for our foreign guests on the line. That's kind of like this myth that exists in Israeli society, that the next generation won't have to serve. And of course, we all know that that just as Chen's organization will probably continue to exist, so will the military draft. And of course, I'll take this opportunity again, as you know, during International Women's Day or Week, rather, to strengthen all of those in uniform, both women and men, and remind everyone that Israelis view this service as a privilege. I'd like to thank both of you for joining. You really are an inspiration. It's not a cliche. I'd also like to thank my colleague, JPC Content Director Jonathan Beck, for facilitating this event. And finally, I'd like to invite any of our participants who are based in Israel to attend a special panel this evening at 6 p.m. in Jerusalem, discussing the impact of the German general election results. And it's being put together in cooperation with JPC, as well as the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung Foundation and the Council for Foreign Relations in Israel. Reach out to info@jerusalempressclub.com for details. And I'd like to wish everyone a safe weekend and happy International Women's Week.
Thank you, Talia.
Thank you, Talia. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Dinah. Thank you, Chen. Goodbye, everybody.